Hiya, HonestDiscussioner here. Making this video, to me, is a no-brainer. It's not very often I disagree with Sisyphus Redeemed, and the way I see it, it's a win-win situation for me. Either I make some cogent points against his position, or he kicks my ass completely, which would, to me, be akin to getting beat at chess by Bobby Fischer. It's an event that would bring honor rather than dishonor. The topic du jour is the death penalty. While it would seem that Sisyphus is actually against the death penalty as it exists today, even listing a number of arguments he feels are major problems for the death penalty, he disagrees with the position Prof. MTH takes in his recent video, which is to say the execution of innocent people is a strong argument against the death penalty. Sisyphus feels that this argument, which he calls the argument from miscarriages of justice, not only fails as an argument against the death penalty, but may actually reinforce the position of death penalty advocates. Since Sisyphus isn't arguing for the death penalty, I won't be bringing up all of the arguments against the death penalty. I will limit my arguments to countering the specific reasons he gives for not thinking the argument for miscarriages of justice is a persuasive argument.
The number of innocent people killed by the death penalty is paltry in comparison to the number of innocent people killed by society other ways for much more trivial reasons.
Sisyphus points out that there are plenty of situations in which the sacrifice of innocent life is worth the institution of a policy. He cites the fact that a good estimate of the number of innocents we execute is about 1.3 people per year. Even if that number were astronomically higher, let's say 100 people per year, we lose far more innocent life in traffic accidents because we have the speed limit set too high. Therefore, it is unfair to cite the loss of innocent life as a reason to stop the death penalty, since that same argument wouldn't work against increasing the speed limit above 45 miles an hour. Now, the facts he bases this on are all true, but I think this is comparing apples and oranges. Of the times we are willing to sacrifice innocent life for convenience or whatever reason, people have to opt in to take that risk. If I believe the speed limit is set too high, I can simply choose not to drive, or at least avoid roads that have a speed limit over 45. I can't opt out of the death penalty unless I want to pick up my belongings and move to a country that doesn't have it, which is not really a viable option, I'd say. There's no way to completely avoid getting falsely convicted of a capital crime while still living your life. So unless there is an example of a policy which increases the loss of life, which people can't opt out of, and is also a policy proponents of the argument from miscarriages of justice agree with, I believe this point does not weaken said argument from miscarriages of justice.
There's good reason to think that the death penalty actually increases exoneration rates, and thus abolishing it would lead to more innocent people spending the rest of their lives in prison.
Now, Sisyphus, at the time of me making this video, hasn't listed his sources yet, but promises they are coming. I have no reason to doubt this. I've done the same thing countless times. However, this will lead me to have to guess on some of the evidence he cites, so my points may need adjustment in the future. One of the pieces of evidence he cites for this is that the death row exoneration rate from 1989 to 2001 is 2.07%, while the non-death row exoneration rate for that same time period was 0.0188%, a much lower number by orders of magnitude. However, the total prison population he cites is 1,404,032, which leads me to believe he's not talking about only the lifers. He's comparing everyone who went to prison for anything, criminals who went to prison for petty theft or marijuana possession, right up to the capital offenders. If that is the case, then this is an unfair comparison. Marijuana possession, whether you agree it should be a crime or not, is a more open and shut case. It very well may be the lower exoneration rate is due to prisoners actually being guilty more often than people on death row. If this statistic is comparing only lifers to death row inmates, then my previous point would not count. Now, perhaps more helpful to his case is the statistic that death row cases get over 1,300 hours more attention from defense attorneys than non-capital murder cases. My question to that would be, would those defense attorneys be spending their hours would be spreading their hours around a bit more if there was no death penalty. Insert Fox News calling me a socialist right here. I really, I think a better study would be to look at the man-hours put into the murder cases in a state before it had the death penalty, and compare it to the hours spent after the death penalty was instituted, and also compare the exoneration rates for those two groups. Sisyphus also adds on that there are concrete cases in which people were exonerated only because the death penalty was involved. Again, I'd like to argue that we can't know how many people were not exonerated because defense attorneys were spending time on people who were on death row. We could, of course, do away with life sentences and put everyone on death row, but that would then muddle the concentration effect we find here. And really, I doubt anyone would want to argue we should do that anyway. There are other arguments that Sisyphus makes, ones that certainly warrant addressing, but I feel trying to refute them in this format would be unfruitful. It would require more of a discussion rather than a back-and-forth video debate, so hopefully I'll be able to get to Sisyphus' points either in the comments section or maybe during a conversation on Blog TV in the future. That's about it. Have a nice day. Honest Discussioner, out.
One person who weighed in on the topic recently was the always sagacious Prof. MTH, who was himself responding to a video by the plagiarist Antidote.